Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Likky, it's so great to be with you. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing incredible. I appreciate you taking the time. I wanted to just thank you very much for coming into my life. It's been an incredible journey with you. I started working with the Bob Burg Go Givers book a few years ago. A friend of mine gave it to me. I've shared it with so many people out there. I love the philosophy. And then meeting you a couple of years ago and becoming a certified speaker and a coach, it's really impacted the way I do work and I do business. So,
Yeah. Likky, you embody the very spirit of the Go-Giver philosophy. And so you were doing that long before you ever read the book. It's just that you resonated with it because it's who you are. And because it's who you are, it's what you do. And Kathy and I, my business partner, Kathy Tajanel, she and I both noticed it when you came to the event. And so we're so pleased and so honored to have you really taking this message throughout North America, especially Canada, and not only living this philosophy, but teaching it to others and other businesses as well. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Thanks for those kind words. For those of you who don't know Bob Burg is a sought-after speaker at company leadership and sales conferences, sharing the platform with everyone from today's business leaders and broadcast personalities to even a former US president. Bob is the author of a number of books in sales, marketing, and influence, with total book sales of over 1 million copies. His book, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, itself has sold over 800,000 copies and is being translated into 21 incredible languages. His and John's newest parable in the Go-Giver series is the Go-Giver Influencer. Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that amounts of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He is also an apologetic animal fanatic, and this is a past member of the board of directors of Furry Friends Adoption Clinics and Ranch in his town of Juniper, Florida. Thanks, Bob. So I've got a couple of questions I want to ask you. The title, The Go-Giver, contradicts traditional wisdom. Is that intentional?
Well, I think anytime you have a book, you title it in a way that hopefully is enticing in the title, and but it's totally congruent with the message, because really, when you think about it, what is a go-giver? It's someone who understands, maybe they've learned or they've always intuitively known, that it's that person who can shift their focus off of themselves and onto others. That person who moves from who understands that shifting your focus, if you will, from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, Likky, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing value to others. And that doing so is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. So we titled it The Go-Giver, not as being the opposite of a go-getter. We love go-getters because go-getters take action. We would say the opposite of a go-giver is a go-taker, right? That person focused on the take without adding value to others. So we always say we like people to be both go-getters and go-givers, just not go-takers. So while we hope the title is one that it would entice people, the go-giver, what's that about? I hadn't heard about that. The message is certainly congruent with the title. So yes, absolutely done purposely.
Good. So so is go-getter being a bad thing?
No, so that's that, and that's a great thing. I think maybe people thought so from the title, and I think John and I, if there was one thing that I would do over again with that, is that we'd explain it in there more thoroughly. I think we both sort of felt as though people would understand that being a go-getter is a good thing when combined with being a go-giver, right? So in our follow-up book, Go-Givers Sell More, which is more of an application-based book, we did explain it in there. But I wish now that maybe one of the characters sort of made that point.
Maybe the next book.
You're right.
So, the book has got, you talk about 5 laws and, the 5 laws of stratospheric success. And the law number 1 is a law of value. So explain to me what that means.
Yeah, that's really the foundational principle. And the law of value says that your true worth in the business sense, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear that, it can sound a bit counterintuitive, right? Even counterproductive. Give more in value than I take in payment? How am I going to make a profit? How am I going to survive in my business, never mind thrive? Sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. Give more in value than I take in payment. But we know, of course, that's not the case. But how do we know that? Well, it's through understanding the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth to someone, so much value, that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, while you, of course, make a very healthy profit. A very simple example would be to say that you hire an accountant to do your tax returns, and they charge you, just to name a round figure, $1,000. That's their fee, or literally their price, $1,000. What's the value they provide in exchange? Well, through their years of experience and knowledge and their willingness to get to know you and your business and what you're looking to accomplish, they're able to save you $5,000 in taxes. They save you countless hours of time, and they provide you with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. So we see here that, again, while price is finite, value can be both concrete in terms of that $5,000 savings. That's pretty easy to get our arms around, but also it can be conceptual, especially in terms of the peace of mind, which probably holds more worth or value than even the money saved. So what this accountant did, Likky, is give you well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000 price. Right. So he gave you more in value than he took in payment. So you feel great about it. And this accountant made a very, very healthy profit, which he or she feels good about. So that's really the essence of what we're talking about. That in this exchange, both parties came away much better off than they were before. And so that's really understanding the law of value. Now, that's part of it. And it's wonderful that whatever your product or service happens to be, that you provide more in value than you take in payment, but just based on the intrinsic value of your product, or service, what it's designed to do. But it's really not enough to distinguish you in the marketplace, because every other accountant can probably do the same thing. The same with a realtor, the same with an insurance executive, the same with a chiropractor, right? And if a potential customer or client doesn't see any significant difference between 2 or more products or services, they're generally going to go with who has the lowest price. And unless your last name is Walmart, or maybe Amazon.com, or what have you, that's probably not a good way to do business, right? And so what we need to do then is distinguish ourselves. And this is where extrinsic value comes in. Extrinsic value is the actual experience. That's everything over and above the intrinsic value of the nature of your product or service. So how do you do that? Well, you actually become that additional value. You see, technology has leveled off the playing field. Most products and services they work well, they work pretty much similarly, and so forth. So we need to, in order to take price out of the equation, because remember, if you sell on low price, you're a commodity. Right. If you sell on high value, you're a resource. We want people selling on high value as opposed to low price. So we need to become that additional value. How? There are probably hundreds of ways, but they tend to come down to 5 what we call elements of value. And they are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. And to the degree that you, and when I say you, I mean you and everyone on your team, can communicate one or more, hopefully all 5 of these elements of value at every single touch point, from from that first call or first meeting, through the process, through the sale, through the referrals, through the follow-up. That's the degree that you do distinguish yourself in the marketplace, and you take price out of the equation.
Yeah. So, it's interesting you say that. So, I always get asked, well, I keep on giving value, but still don't seem to close a sale. Why is that?
So when we hear this, I'll tell you, I was going to say 99% of the time, but it's actually 100% of the time that I've ever actually been, when I've gotten to talk with someone and do a diagnostic, right? Because, someone could say, well, I'm bringing value all the time, but I'm not getting results, unless we know what it is they've done and so forth. How do you, so when I've had the opportunity to be able to work with someone on that, it's actually very easy to do a diagnostic. It typically will come down to, it will come down to they're not going through those 5. They're not applying the 5 laws. Okay. And again, this isn't me just saying you're not applying the 5 laws. This is through asking questions and discovering what it is they're doing. Now, that's 100% of the time. 99.9% of the time, it goes back to value. And that is a lack of understanding that value is always in the eyes of the beholder. It's not what we believe is of value about our product or service, or what we believe they should believe is of value about our product or service. It's what they believe. And so when I'll ask people, so what are you doing that's bringing value to this person? Well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm doing, so half the time those things they're telling me I know are not, is just not something that is bringing value. But when it seems like it could, I'll say, okay, so how do you know this is what your prospective customers or clients want? Well, I just figure everybody wants it. Well, that's not true. Right? That's not true. We only know through discovering, through asking questions, through doing our research to know it. And so we need to always be careful that, when we say, well, I'm doing this, but we need to make sure we're doing this thing in the correct way. And again, we don't hear it that much when people apply these principles. And again, I'm not bragging by saying it. These are not principles that John and I invented, as an experiment. These have been around forever, right? Successful people have always tapped into these principles, sometimes just intuitively, other times they learned it. But these are proven success principles. If you use all 5 of them, the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity, you've got to profit sustainably. But that doesn't mean that they're always applied correctly. And so that's where we always have to go back to and say, and check the premises and say, is it being done correctly?
So that's it. That's perfect. So, you said something about the law of receptivity. That's the, out of the 5 laws, the value and receptivity really stand out to me. And that's the one that I was having a real challenge with. And if you remember that, when I was in Orlando, we went through that exercise, and I love that exercise that we did. But explain what the law of receptivity really means.
Sure. And this is something that if there's one law that most people have the most difficulty with, it's that one. And I think for good reason. Most of us have that. That's the biggest one for all of us. I don't say all, most of us to overcome. So let's look at this law because it's so very important. And I can't tell you how often John and I have received emails from people who've said, reading that chapter finally gave me permission to know it's okay to be prosperous, which is a compliment, but it's just a shame that our society is such that people are basically, we're trained to not expect prosperity or to feel it's bad in some way, or you had to. So let's look at this. The law of receptivity says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. Near the end of the story, the main mentor, Pindar, asked Joe, the protege, excuse me, to breathe out and hold that outgoing breath to the count of 30. Well, Joe tried, but like most of us, 8, 9, 10 seconds, he's struggling for air and gasping for breath. And Pindar says, what's the matter? Joe can't do it. Joe says, oh, I can't just breathe out. I've also got to breathe in. Pindar jokingly says, well, Joe, what if I was to tell you it's been medically proven that it's actually healthier to breathe out than it is to breathe in? And Joe just laughed. It's possible, you know, you've got to do, you can't do one or the other. You've got to do both. Well, exactly. We breathe out and we breathe in. We breathe out carbon dioxide. We breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving. We breathe in, which is receiving. Contrary to the messages we get from the world around us constantly, giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem. The key is where you focus. You focus on the giving of value. You allow yourself to receive, but you realize that the giving comes first. The focus on providing value comes first. This is why we say that money is an echo of value. Money is an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning. So you focus on the giving, but you must allow the receiving. Why do people have difficulty with this? Well, look at the messages we get from the world around us. If you know, whether it's environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, popular culture, you get this feeling that anybody who gets wealthy did it on the backs of others, or by being ruthless or horrible or criminal, and these are the headlines, and we see it so much. Well, it's easy to get into people's heads on an unconscious level when this is what they grow up with, and this is what they live with, and this is what we see. You rarely see a headline that says corporate CEO treats people fairly, right? It just doesn't sell. What sells is Enron and Tyco and the horrible people that do. And it's a big world. There are lots of but in the basically free market economy that we have throughout North America, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one's forced to do business with anyone else. In order to be profitable, to be prosperous, to be sustainably so, you have to be providing value to others, because no one has to buy from you. Nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. They're not going to buy from you because you need the money, and they're not even going to buy from you because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you only because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. This is why law number 3, the law of influence, is your influence is determined by how abundantly you place the other person's interest first. That's not just good life, that's good business.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So you see the law of influence. In that book of yours, the new book, you mentioned listen with the back of your neck.
Right.
I love that saying. So explain to me what that really means. How would you explain that to somebody else?
Yeah, sure. And my co-author, John David Mann, came up with that, and I just thought it was so brilliant. The principle itself in that book is to step into the other person's shoes, right? Which we've all heard that before. It's an old saying. The challenge is that it's difficult to do so because most of us have different size feet. So how do you step into another person's shoes, right? Literally, most of us cannot. Figuratively, we can't step inside another person's head and know what they're thinking because we're not them. We come from different belief systems, different models of the world, different ways of seeing that, right? Our own subjective truths, if you will. And so what we suggest is that you ask questions. Want to step into another person's shoes? Ask questions so you can understand them better. But when you ask questions, it's also imperative that you listen, but not just listen with your ears. That's the surface listening that most people do. That's listening in order to speak. You're listening, waiting your turn to speak. You're willing to give them their 2 cents in order for you to get in your yes, but also listen with your eyes, listen with your posture, listen with the back of your neck. In other words, listen with your entire being. Put yourself so into this mode that your entire essence is taking in what this person's saying. And when you do that, two things will happen. One is you will understand them a lot better. You'll understand their needs, their wants, their desires, what they believe is of value, not what you believe is of value, what they believe is of value, which puts you into a very nice position to be able to serve them and help them. Now, what it also does when you listen with the back of your neck is they feel heard, they feel listened to, and they're much more likely to trust you because they realize you've been listening to them.
So it's it's interesting. So you put all these 5 laws together. So you've got some in your teaching, you've got some different breaking points of sales, and you've got different paradigms. What are some of the different ways of selling, and why is this different? People spend a lot of money on sales training and different techniques. How is this different? How is this way of selling different?
Well, I don't think it's any different from the ones who are doing it correctly. And there are a lot of people that teach selling correctly. I think there are those who maybe don't. We won't mention those. There's no reason to, but I think there's a lot of good information out there on selling. And you'll notice that they may have different styles or different ways of teaching it, but they tend to always come from the point of view that it isn't about you. It's not about the salesperson. It's not even about the product or service, as important as the product or service is. It's always about the other person. It's always about them. So it's a matter of discovering what is selling. Selling is simply discovering what the other person needs, wants, and desires and helping them to get it. That's what it is. The Old English root of the word sell was selan, which literally meant to give. So when you're selling, you're literally giving. Well, isn't that just semantics? No, I don't think so. Because when you're in front of a prospective customer or client and you're selling, what exactly are you giving? I suggest you're giving them time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and ultimately exceptional value. So I think any sales techniques, if you will always be congruent with the basic principle that it's always about serving that other person. And it can be whether it's a sale that is not very complex, one that's very simple or elementary, or it could be a very complex enterprise sale where there are more moving parts and more people who you need to, create, but it still comes down to the same thing.
Right. So it's interesting. So in the book, you say something that's a little bit questionable. You say you can't make a sale.
Right.
What do you mean by that? I mean,
yeah.
we just talked about sales, but now
right, of course, you have to make sales, right? Exactly. So here's what, and this is where semantics does come into play. We say you can't make a sale, and the reason why, because again, in a free market-based economy where no one's forced to buy from you, you can't make anyone do anything. So you can't make a sale. What you can do, Likky, is you can create the environment where this person, feeling it's in their best interest to do so, they choose to buy. And you're there to receive the sale.
Oh, I think I've lost you.
Important. But it's the difference between making the sale and creating the environment where a sale is made and simply receiving it. If you're making the sale, it's about you, right? If you're creating the environment so that this person, based on what's best for them, chooses to buy with your guidance, now that's different. Now that's about the customer or client and how it's going to touch their lives.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So then I hear a lot of people say, I need sales today, but if I keep on giving value, it's such a long cycle. What do you recommend if I need a sale today and we're hungry for business today, in whatever industry it is? Could be the car industry, it could be real estate, but it could be our technology world. What do you recommend?
Yeah, I love that question. Basically, it is the question itself, because you do hear that a lot. Mm-hmm. The question is based on a false premise. That false premise being, okay, so the question is basically, yeah, I get this go-giver stuff and focusing on them and bringing value to them. Yeah, and I'll do that after I'm already wealthy enough, right? That I don't have to, but I need the money now. Okay, so the false premise is that focusing on yourself, focusing on the money, rather than focusing on bringing exceptional value to this person is actually going to make things happen quicker for you than not. So I would say, let's use the example. And what I would generally say to somebody is, make believe you're the prospective customer, okay? And I'm the salesperson, and I need the money now, okay? I mean, I really need that money now. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to start talking about my product, because I'm not really, I may ask a few questions, but really it's to get to the point where I can sell you my product, and because I need the money, and it's really focused on the product. And when you ask questions, yeah, I answer them, but you can tell it's sort of an annoyance for me because this is standing in the way of the money. When you have an objection, I'm very defensive about it because it's standing in the way of the money. And you can basically tell that my goal is a transfer of wealth from your bank account to mine. Are you more likely or less likely to do business with me right now? And most people will say, well, less likely. They kind of know where I'm going. And I say, okay, now I'm the same salesperson. I still need the money. Okay, I still need the money. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to deny my self-interest. I'm not going to forego my self-interest, because that would be denying reality. Okay, we're human beings. We are self-interested creatures. But what I am going to do is I'm going to willingly set it aside. Because I realize it does me no good and it does the other person no good, okay? And I am going to genuinely and authentically put my focus on where it needs to be, on you, the prospective customer. So I ask questions, and I'm truly I'm listening, I'm discovering what it is that you're looking to accomplish, what you need, what you want, what you desire. I'm answering questions, and I'm answering questions in a very helpful way, educational way. When you have an objection, I'm considering that, I'm taking that in. I'm not stuck on overcoming the objection, but rather framing it in a correct way through asking questions, so we both understand what the true objection is. And only after I totally understand what you're looking to accomplish do I begin to match the benefits of my product or service with your needs, wants, and desires. Basically, what you can tell is this sales professional is looking out for you. Are you more likely or less likely to buy from me right now? And most people will say more. So there's so why someone would kind of think the go-giver is about not having, I'm not sure why. I think they hear go giver and they think, well, you're just giving yourself away and not, no, you were talking about business principles, of course. It just simply means that you're so focused on providing immense value to others. That's what drives the whole process. And you're much more likely to do well, faster, and more sustainably when your focus is on them and pleasing them.
That's great. We did a workshop in a different market. There was a tough market right now because they're getting out of a recession. And we went in there, did a conversation, and I started talking about networking and value and building the relationships. And you can just see their body language really drop. And they saw that as a long-term payback. So I went in there and said, what do you have right now? Let's go into your existing customer base and start giving value to those guys right now. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, their body language picked up, and they saw a light at the end of the tunnel because it was easy. You've got your existing customers, just go back and give them more value and more value. And all of a sudden, sales start coming out of it. That's great. So thank you. So, I want to wrap this up, and I want to thank you for your time. But
my pleasure.
What's the one thing people should remember in order to be successful?
I think back to close to 40 years ago. I had been in sales for a couple of years. I had studied it. I was doing pretty well. But like Joe in the story, the protege, I wasn't near to reaching my potential, and I was stuck. And I remember coming back to the office for the company I was selling for. I sold a fairly big ticket item, and I was in kind of a slump. And I came back from a non-selling appointment, non-selling not by design, non-selling because I didn't do my job correctly in helping the customer understand why it would have been in their best interest to buy, which it would have been. And I must have looked either discouraged or angry or something. I'm not sure, but one of the older people there, and he wasn't even in sales. I think he was in the engineering department, and I don't think he was at the company long after that. I think he was close to retirement. Nice guy though, and one of those guys with that country wisdom that you just knew when they say, they didn't say much, but when they did, you knew it was worth listening to. And he said, "Berg, can I give you some advice?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely, please." And he said, "If you want to make a lot of money in business," actually he said, "if you want to make a lot of money in sales," he said, "don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. When you hit the target," he said, "you'll get a reward. And that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It ain't the target itself. Your target is serving others."
That's beautiful.
That was the difference maker for me. That's when things began to shift. And I think as long as we can remember that ultimately we are there to serve our customers and clients, that's when we are headed in the direction. That's when we're 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. That's when we create the environment for our business to be a lot more fun, a lot less stressful, and a lot more sustainably profitable.
That's incredible. I'm glad I asked that last question because that puts it all together.
Thank you.
It's all about just giving what you have, which is keep on giving. One of the things that you do keep on mentioning in your book is that this is all about making a healthy living. It's not just about giving. It's about making a really good, healthy living. If you follow the 5 laws, the 5 elements of value, things just start happening.
Yeah. I mean, none of the mentors in the story had taken a vow of poverty. They were all very prosperous, not just financially. They were also, all the different, and hey, success covers many areas. There's financial, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, all different areas. In the context of the book, of course, we're talking financial because it's a business story, business book. But yes, absolutely. And the neat thing is, it turns out that to the degree that you provide value to others, the more prosperous you're going to be. Great how that works out.
Wonderful. Bob, thank you very much for taking time today to talk to me. I really appreciate it. Do you have any last words?
No, my pleasure. I just thank you for being such an amazing ambassador of the Go-Giver message, mainly a fantastic embodiment of the Go-Giver message. So you and your team keep up the great work.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot, Bob.